Friday, September 8th at 7:49 a.m. in Maui, Hawaii, and we are currently in gate 5 of our transit through 64 and 63. And we're going to be moving into line 6 in like 7 hours. So me and Luke are going to probably do another little T in transit here in about 7 or 8 hours whenever he gets back when it shifts, just to start being a little more, how you say, on time. Not that really being on time matters to me, but anyway. 64, line 5, promise. Exaltation, real quick. I'm just going to check and make sure we're not in any exaltation or detriment. And we are having to turn the sun and earth back on. Not. Okay, great. So line 5, promise. The values promised in any new order are demonstrated through harmonic interactions with others. This strengthens the justification for the struggle, confusion over which values and relationships can bring harmony. Detriment, a tendency in trying to justify the struggle by focusing exclusively on the failure of the old order that cannot demonstrate the quality of the new, focusing on past confusions about values and relationships. Well, this brings up that quote. I think it's a Buckminster Fuller quote where he says, "You don't change reality by fighting the existing reality. You make a new reality that makes the old reality obsolete." And with promise, at least for the next little 7-hour chunk that we have with this transit, ultimately, again, 64 is on, so confusion is going to be present. So number one, don't be confused that the confusion is present, especially if you have this gate undefined in your body graph. The extra confusion, like I've definitely felt extra confusion and extra head pressure to like figure out the confusion, which is really about like the past, like how did we get here? 63, the other gate in transit, is like, where are we going? I don't know if we can go there. I've felt extra confusion and extra doubt, and I've been tempted to make moves based on that, cancel flight tickets, for instance, but I'm not going to, because I know that this confusion and doubt is coming by way of the transits, and so I'm not going to rush to make those hasty maneuvers. And line 5 today again is it's okay to be confused about which values and relationships can bring harmony. Now, the detriment of this line here is to be focused on the past or focusing on the ways that things have failed, because the failure of the past is only a part of the confusion, right? Because whatever you've failed to do in the past, you've succeeded in doing something else. And if you focus on the failure, it's like rubbernecking, when you're driving and then all of a sudden there's all this traffic and like there's not even a lot of cars on the road, but people are slowing down to look at the accident. I make it a point now to not use my focal vision to look at the accident. If I can look at it through my peripherals, cool, but I'm still focusing on where I want to go. And that's a good example of dealing with head pressure, is like have it in your peripherals and train your peripheral vision, which a really cool thing to do, by the way, guys, is if you take a pen and you go like this, and there's a window right here. But if you look at the tip of the pen and then you look really far away and then you attempt to look and catalog and just take inventory of all the stuff in your peripheral vision, and then you look back at the pen and you do the same thing, peripheral vision, focused far, peripheral vision, focused close, peripheral vision, you can actually train your peripheral vision. And this is going to, ultimately allow you to do what I call is like the educated view, is not accept or reject anything outright, but to actually be able to just let something be without like basically how you say, evaporating or purifying the emotional awareness of the motorized energy. So you can have awareness of something without necessarily feeling like you have to do something to it, right? And then with that kind of awareness, there's so much more possibilities for making the right decision. Is usually it's because you got to be more patient most of the time. That's people's number one problem, I would say, with in life, is just that they're not patient enough, because we're so used to this like instant gratification, send a message, get a message right back, and this just like very hyper fixation on the immediate gratification as opposed to this delayed gratification. And um, so anyway, that's 64. Let's go to 63 now. We have line 5, affirmation, which is, let me pour my tea so it doesn't get too bitter. Excellent. And the authority and sincerity of purpose to pursue the same values in the new beginning that had allowed it to transcend the old. The understanding that doubts are necessary and of value. Detriment is a tendency in triumph to pay lip service to such values, and given such leadership, these values will be reduced to nothing more than empty rituals, doubting one's very process despite understanding. So, again, understanding the value of doubt, just as we are understanding the value of confusion, and not because we're never using the head as an inner authority, right? Um, but never using the doubts or confusions to make decision as opposed to contextualize the decision that we're going to make, which is there's a subtle difference, and it's kind of the difference between like being defined by human design and being described by human design. And genetically speaking, like, we are defined by our expressions, but we also have free will. We could deny ourselves our expression. We could also embrace our expression. We can embrace our genetics, we can embrace our circuitry, and that will then create, again, the theory is that that creates a more satisfying, peaceful, successful life of surprise, as opposed to denying what's physically there. And so, again, the doubt and the mind, I always talk about it like a dog. Like, you have to train the dog, right? Otherwise, the dog is just running around sniffing people's butts, shitting everywhere. But if you have like a trained dog, which is your mind, then you can set it on tasks. Hey, go get me a drink from the fridge. Hey, go grab the newspaper. Hey, attack that person, right? And so you want the mind to be trained. And the thing about dogs and training dogs is that you have to give them some kind of activity, right? Like, they do work on this like reward way of being. And so, for instance, one of the things that the reward cycle that people get stuck in is like, your subconscious mind is always trying to prove you right, right? And it'll twist reality in such a way where it's like, for instance, if you're in a relationship and you're like, oh, this person is just going to leave me like the last person left me. And so your subconscious mind says, oh, you want to be right? Okay, let's self-sabotage. Let's be nitpicky. Let's go look for action on the side. Let's do things under the surface of your consciousness so that you can be right. Yeah. And that then becomes the reward of, oh, look it, I was totally right. I knew it. 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 And that's the cycle that a lot of people get stuck in, is that they care more about being right than they care about being happy. And so, one of the things, again, that the mind uses as a tool is doubt and confusion. It's able to look into the future, which, spleen and other centers are not able to do that. So it's able to look into the future. It's able to look into the past in this holographic way that the other awareness centers are just not able to do. And so with that power comes great responsibility. Now I feel like Uncle Ben from Spider-Man. You have to be careful about that, because, again, if you're basing your decisions off of your doubts, if you're basing your decisions off of your confusion, and you're not consulting the inner authority, well, then you're missing the whole point of studying human design. And so there's so many good memes about like people asking for help and then just getting high-fived and saying, follow your strategy and authority. Because ultimately, like, you learn, and not to discourage anyone for asking from help, but ultimately you learn that if someone is unwilling to follow their strategy and authority, a lot of the other contextual information, a lot of the other details about their chart are not really going to help them. They're going to be in resistance to that, because if they're in resistance to following their strategy and authority, that is like, you can't get past that not self. That's a gatekeeper of them saying, I'd rather be right than satisfied, or I'd rather be right than successful or peaceful or full of surprise. And so, again, what we're looking at with this transit is really and I keep forgetting to do this. I forget to make the characters as gates. I'm going to copy the link and I'm going to share it here. But I'll make one for 64. and one for 65 right now. But this is a whole part of the you know, the fun of it is to come in here and think about like, okay, which characters from movies I've seen are good embodiments of these gates, right? After completion, doubt. So I just created them, and I'll like contextualize them once this is done. But you know, again, that's one of the things that initially started off as like a kind of like a joke, but then it became like a, oh, actually, this is a really sick exercise. And so head over there. I just created forms for 64 and 63. So as you can see from the rest of them, there's like, you know, gifs and pictures of characters that, you know, again, we recognize them in society. And so that's one of the things is like being able to recognize this gate within somebody is ultimately like the exalted form of human design is to not need a body graph, right? Is to be able to look and feel somebody with your aura and feel what is coming from them, what is being absorbed in your own field, right? What you're projecting onto them, what they're absorbing, what they're resisting. And this is subtle body awareness. You know, this is the awareness of the aura, not from a mental perspective, right? But from an actual tangible, from a more splenic perspective, from a physical, oh, I can feel you taking in energy here, but you're resisting energy up here. And this is something too that you can train. You know, I was doing this with the eyes, and the more attuned you become to your senses, right? The more attuned you become to your senses. And so they can start to sense more subtle sensations the more you practice with it. So this is huge for like reflectors and projectors and manifestors, the non-sacral types, because one of the things that I had to and that we all eventually have to figure out is, you know, what does it feel like when I'm absorbing somebody else's sacral energy, when I'm sampling somebody else's sacral energy. And then for the sacral beings, you know, generators and manifesting generators, you guys got to ask yourself, what does it feel like when somebody else is absorbing my sacral frequency? Because that then becomes a you know, how you say, a gatekeeper of the not self. Of like, for instance, I had a friend who, he's actually the one who kind of like really turned me on to human design, was you know, he was an emotional manifesting generator. And I remember he was feeling really sad one day, and he was getting in his car about to leave, and I could feel that, and I was like, hey bro, can I go with you? Where are you going? And he's like, I I really don't want to oh, great idea, Prana. Yeah, you could totally put it in your bio there. But he was like, Marco, I love you, and I'm so happy that you want to like come help me ride out my emotional wave, but I love you too much, and I don't want to subject you to it. I'm probably just going to go to a movie theater and then leave halfway through the movie, which was one of his ways of riding out his emotional wave. um, and I was like, oh damn, like at first I was like, oh, that kind of sucks, like I just want to help you, bro. But then I realized what he was doing, and he's like taking accountability for his emotional wave. He's not going to use me as like a pacifier. He's not going to subject me to his emotional wave. And he's like, it was one of the kindest things that anybody has ever done for me, because typically, and I think that was one of the reasons why I reached out in the first place, was because I'm like, you're not in this like needy energy of me. And so that's what makes me want to like help you out more. But realizing like, oh, actually sometimes helping somebody out means just letting them go through their shit, which is very, very relevant. And again, the the awareness, and this is what I'm hoping to some point create some kind of course or um, walk along for everybody to learn this with me. But what I've been developing for the past year and a half, 2 years, is actual physical exercises that we can do that are going to help us with this like subtle body sensitivity. And there's a book that I have on it. Okay, there it is. Sweet. And I'll put this in book recommendations because it's not there. But in terms of if you guys really want a discourse on subtle bodies, like a college level course on subtle bodies, this is it. Awakening the Third Eye by Samuel Sagan. This is also the same guy who wrote Atlantean Secrets. So I'll post this in the book recommendations. But again, it's like we're studying human design ultimately to in a way like transcend the system, so that we're not thinking in terms of, or we're not having to think and apply the mental frameworks of human design. This is kind of like what the rave children are going to be able to do. Is they're just going to be able to like see you and sense you. They're not going to be like, oh, do you have this gate and that gate, and does that pair up with that? They're going to be like, oh, you have the energy that I need. Cool. Let's work together. You're my people, right? And people, we kind of already do have that. And human design can be a distraction of that. It can also be an amplification of that sense. And so it's important to, again, the joke of it all is like always come back to strategy and authority, because that's the foundation. Like if you're going to build a house, you have to have the foundation good. Otherwise, the windows and the curtains and all that stuff, it doesn't matter, because if the foundation is shitty, then the whole building is going to collapse. So anyway, that'll do it for the transits, guys. Tune in again, like 8 hours or so from now, and we'll probably be doing another transit show here. So thank you guys for pulling up on me today, and have a lovely day. Evolve, awaken, all the good things. Love you guys. See you soon. Bye.